Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight we have a special guest with us on the show. We have Chris Barnes of 6 Feet Under. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, Jet. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Chris, I've got a couple of industry questions for you since you're quite the veteran, been around for a few years.
Yeah, just a couple, yeah.
Just a couple. So, Chris, like I said, that 6 Feet Under has been around now nearing, let's say, almost a quarter of a century just in your band. So you have had plenty of experiences with the changing industry throughout the years. How would you compare the music industry today compared to when you first started? What have you kind of learned along the way?
Wow, that's a very broad and general
Let's
question.
Just focus on the things that piss you off the most, Chris.
Yeah, of course, that's what you want to hear. It's just a different animal now. It's almost non-existent, which may happen pretty soon. So yeah, it's two different animals. I prefer it the way it was before the internet. There was a certain mystique about music and a certain mythical quality.
And I was going to say that too, do you notice as far as like when you're playing shows and show attendance, because I know back in the day we couldn't wait for these shows and we'd be saving our money and so excited when shows came into town, but now with YouTube and all these other outlets, have you noticed a difference in like show attendance?
That's like, I think that's all over the place because you're looking at a few different things at once there, people's attention span toward a certain style of music or a certain band. It may be something to do with the convenience of entertainment being available to them on their phone or whatnot, so they don't have to go. But it could be a lot of other things like the age group at a certain point there's more teenagers during this 5-year period. It's a whole bevy of things that can come into play there. But I've been lucky with this band to have a steady core fan base that seems to follow me or seems to be interested in what I do, even though the fans themselves kind of come and go, and that's cool. I enjoy that kind of occult success in that way. But it kind of goes in waves for a band like ours and this style of music. I think just depending on the how many of one age group of fans there is out there in the population at one time. Because this is a very targeted type of music. You're either older and still into horror, or very into music, or you're like a younger teenager, early 20s that just loves going to shows and music. So it's kind of goes in waves, I think. But it's always been interesting. It's just you have to kind of adjust to things a little.
And do you find now, that the age groups of, your shows are pretty diverse? I mean, I know I go to shows now, and I see, like, kids there with their parents, and these are death metal shows, Do you see that, too?
Yeah, there's always been a little bit of that here and there where, young kids with their parents show up and you sign something, for a young guy. That's, it's like, man, he's only like 7 years old. I don't think he's understanding what he's even doing, man. But cool, okay. But yeah, no, it's like, it is. You see some of the guys that you've known for years still coming out and seeing you, and then, real young dudes that are like, they only caught on to you maybe 1 or 2 albums ago. So it's always a interesting array of age groups and different types of people that come to our shows, and that's fun for me, so that's cool.
So, okay, you guys about to release your 12th album through Metal Blade called Torment. So what can you tell us about the writing process, both musically and lyrically, Chris?
Oh, it's kind of like me and, Jeff Hughell wrote all the music for this and played all the instruments, guitar and bass, and it came together excellent. I mean, Jeff's a great writer and musician, and it was just a nice collaboration. I had a great time figuring out lyrics and vocal parts for this one. He really provided me with some awesome music to kind of do some interesting things with.
And did you guys have any guests or anything crazy on this one?
No guests. We just kept it kind of to ourselves and worked on it on our own.
And Chris, what are the basic themes on it, lyrically?
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory when you look at my lyrics and stuff. There's you can take it at a straight horror value, or you can dig a little bit deeper within and read between the lines and try to understand the symbolism and metaphor and stuff like that.
And you also, you have a new artist doing the cover work for it. So tell us a little bit about the cover art and the artist, Chris.
Yes, Septian Venom. He kind of, I've met him online, a fan of mine, and started doing some artwork for me, and I just was blown away by his stuff. So he came up with that piece for the cover. It's something he titled Duality. And it really spoke to me because that's philosophy and something I've pondered for many years, and it's represented in my music and a lot of my cover art, my 6 logo that we use to represent the band. That has to do with the duality of existence, of human life and singularity, and good and evil, light and dark, and those are all elements within my lyrics that I've always written about.
And I really like it's different for a death metal album cover. It's just the colors, but it doesn't take away. I mean, I think it kind of depicts the content pretty well in the album when you check out the cover. So it's very different, which is why I like it so much. It stands out more, but it still, depicts the horror and that kind of thing that's throughout the album as well. So
yeah, I don't think people understand the idea of balance and the yin and yang, and that's what that album cover represents in its own way.
Now, Marco is a new addition to the band. Marco Petruzella on the drums. So how's he been working out for you, Chris?
Oh, Marco's a great guy. We've had him hanging out with us for almost 4 years now, and he's played a lot of tours on the road, and he's just a great drummer, man. Awesome, just talent. I mean, raw talent, and born with a great sense of meter. I mean, he can do anything as far as that goes. He's just multi-talented on the drums, and it shows on this recording for sure.
And now, as far as his drum parts, did he write them, or did he write them with Jeff?
Well, it's kind of Jeff wrote all the drum parts, and Marco added his own little flair to them in the studio.
And Marco and Jeff have worked together in the past before, so that probably wasn't a huge deal for them to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, they work well together for sure. I mean, Marco was on his own in the studio here in Seattle. Jeff lives in Oakland. Mm-hmm.
And so, are you guys going to be doing some touring now to follow up the album?
Yeah, we're putting some stuff together right now. So hopefully, early summer, late spring, we're going to be hitting the road here in the States for the first leg of touring, and following that up, most likely in the early fall for the second leg, and of course our usual German festivals at the end of the year, and hopefully some summer festivals in Europe as well.
So, Chris, after doing this now for so many years, what's the experience like for you now as far as band life and touring and releasing albums? Are you still having fun with this, kind of like you did 20 years ago?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't fun for me. That's, I think, a lot of people ask me, how do you keep doing it? And my answer is usually it's because it's so much fun. I just love creating new music, and I like seeing people smile when they get to come to a concert and see the band live. Because I was out in the crowd once, and I was one of those guys wanting to see my favorite band, and it was always exciting. And to see that from my perspective now is really fulfilling.
All right, Chris, thank you for coming on the show, taking the time out to tell us about the band and what's going on with you guys and the new album, and all the best on the release of the new album and what you got going on throughout the year.
Okay, thanks, Jet. Appreciate it.
So that wraps up the interview I had with Mr. Chris Barnes. Now, as we heard Chris speak, he told us how Jeff Hughell did all the music writing for this album. So we got Jeff on the phone to tell us about the writing process and how he went about writing the music for the new album Torment that's coming out at the end of this month. So here is Jeff Hughell right now telling us about what's going on with the writing process of Torment. Hey guys, we're back and you're listening to the Metal Magdalene with Jet here on Metal Messiah Radio. Now, we just heard from Chris Barnes of 6 Feet Under talking about their new album, Torment. And as you heard, Chris had mentioned that Jeff Hughell wrote all the music for the album. So we brought Jeff on the show to talk about that aspect. So welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So, Jeff, now correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been in the band since 2012, right?
Yeah, 2012. It's actually any day now. It's probably the 5-year anniversary.
Ooh, well, happy anniversary! and this is what, your second album with them?
Yeah, exactly. I played on bass on Unborn, so yeah, this will be my second one.
All right, so this album, you wrote all the music on it, right?
Yeah, so I wrote all the music, and I did all the guitars and bass on this album.
Okay, so how does it happen in a band? What would you do? All sit down and they say, okay, Jeff, you've been voted to write all the music. How does that even happen?
Yeah, so it didn't really happen like that. When we first started talking about writing a new album, Chris would kind of just say, hey, if you guys want to start writing some music, that would be great, or something. He sent a text to something like that. So I gave him a call, and we just kind of had a conversation about, what direction we wanted to go, and he was like, I just want to write the heaviest album that we can write, and, so it's undeniable that it's great, and, if it takes 100 songs to get the 10 or however many songs we're going to put on the album, then that's what it'll take. And so, I hadn't really been much of a guitarist, and so I thought I had a guitar at home, so I might as well do the demos on the guitar myself to give them a good idea of what they're going to sound like. And it kind of just started rolling from there.
And now, when you were having these little texty conversations and stuff like that, I mean, was he telling you, well, I kind of want to do this and have this in mind, or did he just, give you total freedom?
Well, I had written a couple things before in the past that just didn't really work out for, whatever reason, and I think maybe some of it was also that I was demoing all of it on the bass, and there was no guitar, so it was like you kind of had to use your imagination to see what it would sound like with the guitar and everything on it. I basically do distortion bass and then clean bass with programmed drums. And so I don't know if that really gave him the whole picture of what was going on. And so I really had a good idea of what to write that was really going to suit Chris. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if we have something that goes along with what Chris has done in the past and just gives him a really good chance to do what he does best, then I thought we would come out with a good album, and I think that's pretty much the way it came out.
So now, did you write the drum parts too?
Yeah, so I'd program the drums with Easy Drummer, which, you know, it's kind of like, after you've done a bunch of programming with it, you know what drum loops are where, so you just kind of drag them into the song. And so it's not like I was like, hey, Marco, you need to play exactly this, but, you know, it was basically the framework of what the drums would be, and then he just adds in his own taste.
So how long did it take for you to actually get all this music done? I mean, did you have a deadline?
No, there's no deadline at all.
Oh, that's good. I was going to say that's kind of sucking.
I mean, once I started writing it just flowed, and so I did the first 10 songs in less than 2 months.
Wow.
Just came out, and so I think right after that, we then did the Graveyard Classics tour, so I then had to learn like 17 cover songs or whatever it was, so then I was busy with that for a month or so, and then I wrote 2 more songs right after we got back from that tour, so that was it.
You know, and then after everybody got their parts that you basically laid the framework down for, was everybody pretty happy? I mean, you know, giving them stuff to play instead of them writing it themselves?
Well, you know, I actually played all the guitar myself.
Oh, that's true. You just got done saying that, didn't you?
It's actually just me, Marco, and Chris. It's the entire album.
Oh, so I'm sure there wasn't much argument there then.
No, not really.
And now you and Marco have played in bands in the past, right?
Oh, yeah. Several.
So you kind of know his style anyways before even getting into it all.
Yeah, but I mean, Marco can really play anything. You know, I think there's a lot of death metal drummers that can play fast, but don't really have that feel or that groove. And I think that's one thing that Marco definitely has. He can play the slow, simple beat with perfect groove and timing, and then, you know, you can also play the fastest thing you can imagine.
So when you finally heard, like, it's all mixed and mastered now, and you guys are finally sitting down to hear the final mix, were you pretty happy with it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Zeus does an amazing job of, you know, what he does. He doesn't try to make you sound like his production, like he has an idea of what he wants you to sound like. He really goes after what the artist wants to sound like. So I think that's a really good person to work with when you want to have your own take on it.
And was it pretty close to what you had envisioned when you were going along writing it and recording?
Yeah, definitely. So actually a lot of, you know, when I recorded the demos for it, we had talked about, you know, going back, and I was actually recorded a bunch of the stuff again, you know, try and make it tighter and re-recorded it, and Chris ended up liking the original demo tracks that I did. So that's basically what you hear on the album is when I wrote them first and recorded them, and that's basically it.
So we've heard it now. It comes out on the 24th. We heard a couple of tracks off of it. And you guys, are you going to be doing like a tour package?
That's all in the works right now. So we're trying to figure out some U.S. dates and European festivals and stuff like that. So it's in the works, but we got nothing confirmed that we can speak about yet. Okay.
Well, there you guys have it. A little bit about the writing process musically from Jeff Hughell. And thank you, Jeff, for coming on the show with us tonight. And best of luck with the album and whatever touring you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.